You're listening to the Drummer Daily Podcast, the only daily podcast dedicated just to drummers. Go to my website at danielhadaway.com. Hey there, welcome back for another edition of Drummer Daily. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate you. I've been blown away. I say this a lot, but I've been blown away by how many people are listening to this podcast. And I get emails all the time from you guys, and it really does mean a lot. Anything feedback, good or bad, that you have for the podcast, I really appreciate it. It means a lot just to know you're listening and you're engaged enough and you care enough that you want to tell me when something doesn't sound good, or you want to hear more about this, or you're annoyed by me saying this, or whatever it is. It really means a lot. So thank you for listening. It really does mean a lot. So today I'm going to start. I'm going to do a couple of episodes on dedicated to worship drumming, church drumming, those kinds of things. If you don't know, I play in a band called All Sons and Daughters, and we are a worship band. So we play music that is intended to be used in church during church services mostly. But we also tour, and we do like nights of worship where people will come and they'll sing a bunch of songs. So normally at a church service, if you don't go to church, normally in church services we might play 4, 5, 6 songs in a church service, and then there's a preacher that preaches or speaks or whatever, and so these nights of worship, these things we do, or might be more like what you might consider a concert, but for us, we still think of them as being like an interactive thing where people sing along. So we put words to all the songs up on a screen, things like that. So anyway, this is going to be about worship drumming, but I do think there's value that's going to be that can be found by any drummer. So please don't tune out if you're not a church drummer, or you don't play at church, or you're not into that kind of music. I think this will still apply to a lot of us. But I've kind of got 3 things that I want to talk about. And these are characteristics of like an awesome worship drummer, or things that if I want to be an awesome worship drummer. So these are the 3 things that I try to attain and to be. So today I want to talk to you about the first one, and that is being sensitive, or sensitivity. Now the type of sensitivity that I'm talking about in drumming is sensitivity to a few different things. One is, and this is the one that drummers get knocked for the most, is your volume in the room. So how loud you're playing, and how loud your playing is being perceived by others. So what that means for me is, from a practical standpoint, and I've talked about this before, is whenever I get into a room, and this is regardless of whether I'm going to be mic'd up, my drums, or not, I want to take my ear monitors out, anything I might have that's hindering how I hear, and I want to play the drums, and I want to hear the sound of the drums bouncing around the room. And so and this is kind of a bonus tip here, but what I've discovered a big mistake that drummers make, and maybe I'll do a whole episode on this later, but a big mistake drummers make a lot of times is the sound. Let's say that you're in a room and there's a lot of reverb in the room. So you hit a drum and it goes, bah, and it goes on forever. And the kick does the same thing. And then the cymbals and the tom, everything you hit, it just speaks. And when it speaks for a long time. It has a lot of sustain, to borrow like a piano term or a guitar term. The drum, even though the sound of the drum itself might be tuned really tight or really dead where it's not resonating a lot, but the sound in the room carries for a long time. Now, so in my mind as a drummer, if I tune these up at home or whatever, I'd say, oh, these drums are really tight sounding, so the drum speaks and then it gets out of the way. It's a really short note. But when I get into this room and I play these same drums, there's the natural reverb. The room might be this giant warehouse, or it might be cinder blocks or something, and that sound bounces all over the room and just lasts forever. Well, if in my mind I haven't listened to the drums in that room, for me as a drummer, what I would do with a tight drum sound, I know I can get away with playing more notes. I can fill in more space, more ghost notes, more fast stuff that kind of fills in a lot of space. And the reason why is because the drums are tight, so every hit is not speaking and bleeding into the next. Well, if I get into this room and I hear that my tight drum sound is actually still in the room, creating a lot of long sustaining sounds, that should affect how I play. So I might space my notes out because I know that every hit is going to have a lot of impact and carry over a lot of sonic space. And so That's kind of a bonus tip for you there. So don't fill in the space too much with your notes if your drums are speaking and they're filling up a lot of space. So adjust your playing and how complicated or how filled in your playing is based on how the drums sound in the room. And so obviously another part of hearing how your drums sound in the room is, like I said before, the volume. So really understanding how loud your drums are being perceived. You can, if you have someone else who can at least hit the drums for you, go out and stand in the room, but then watch also how hard they're hitting your drums when you're out there exploring the room to hear how it sounds out there, because I've learned that most non-drummers don't hit the drums nearly as hard as I do. So that they're probably being respectful of the instrument and not wanting to hurt the drums or whatever. But anyway, keep that in mind. But anyway, do everything you can to perceive how the drums are being heard in the room. Now, that goes for any kind of drumming. Now, specific to worship drumming, a big part of my sensitivity is, and this actually will go into the next episode as well, but my sensitivity to the room, the people. A lot of what we do with All Sons and Daughters is we try to, and even at our church, we try to perceive and give voice to the people that are in the room with us at that moment. So what that means is, since worship music is supposed to be interactive, it's supposed to help other people. We as a band are supposed to be helping other people express something that's true for them. So we have to look around the room and see people and see how they're engaged. If they're, if everyone's sitting down and quiet and their heads are bowed or they're praying or reading scripture, we don't want to blast out, a Hillsong dance song or whatever, because that's not being responsive to where people are. Now, and this is kind of a factor of how our church has been set up for the longest time. But it's definitely true even without this. But our band actually sets up on the floor at our church, and the couple of people who are kind of the worship leaders, the people who are singing the main parts and kind of leading everything, they're up on it might be a 1 foot tall riser, just so they can barely see over everyone and kind of get a feel for the room. So as a drummer, what that means for me, when I'm kind of helping dictate dynamics of a song and where we're going, but I can't see everyone, so I have to kind of be plugged into what the leaders are doing, what they're seeing. And so a lot of times when I'm in a large room or we're at church and I'm off to the side, we don't even stack people deep. I'm on the floor, excuse me, off to the side of where the worship leaders would be. I will angle my drums so I can look, and I will tell you probably 75 to 80% of the time I'm looking directly at whoever is leading the song that we're playing at that moment. So I don't, because I can't see what's happening in the room, but they can. And they're the ones who are the leaders anyway, so I should kind of be following their lead. So I try to be sensitive to that. I try not to ruin any moments. I am very, I'm very aware of the fact that I don't have to play exactly what we planned if the people aren't there with us where we want to go next. So anyway, I kind of hold into that loosely. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit with your drumming in church, or even not. If you're playing in clubs, definitely the first part of this episode will hopefully help you with that. So yeah, sensitivity. That's the first of the 3 things that I think are really important if you're a worship drummer. And so check back with me again tomorrow. I'll have another part of this with some other cool tips for playing drums. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.